Welcome to our Grand Strand Weekly Web Chat. It's week number 6 that we're approaching, and all the teams and opinions that we have right here are just about, concrete, solid, in cement. We're ready to pick region winners, I guess you would say. I guess that's the trick of the trade of what we're going to do today. A couple people to talk about the Grand Strand area football teams. As we do each and every week, we have Guerin of The Sun News and Matt Parris of ESPN Radio Myrtle Beach. Let's start it right away. Myrtle Beach Conway. I mean, you can't really talk about last week's action without remembering this big game, 56-55. It was an instant classic.
Did you have to go to your chiropractor on Saturday morning too? I mean, it was like a tennis match, back and forth, and for 3 hours. Nobody could stop anybody. A lot of points.
Yeah, just seeing those scores come in like that, that's probably wild.
Yeah, I know. We were actually on the phone live as the scoring started piling up, and it was a lot of fun, but crazy to keep up with.
111 points. So I hope you had the over in that game. Let's take a look at some of the results from last week, week number 5 of the high school football season. Stahl knocking off Andrews 26-23. Ainer improving to 4-1 with the win over Hannah Pamplico. Beaufort, or is it Beaufort? Beaufort. I don't know why I say that. 42-28. I think that game wasn't as close as that score seems. Carvers Bay 21, St. James 13, Myrtle Beach 56, Conway 55. And let's go ahead and roll the last monitor there. Nelson, if we can. I believe we have Timmonsville knocking off Waccamaw. Got Waccamaw in there, 60-0. Unfortunately, I probably don't want to see that score. Georgetown 24, Loras 14, and North Myrtle Beach 34, Green Sea Floyd's nothing. Before we, I guess, talk about too much high school football, there's a sad story, I guess, on a lot of people's minds when you're talking Grand Strand area football. You have Mark Fisher, the St. James coach. He was diagnosed with, I guess, cancer, and, all the thoughts and prayers out to him. And I know in just a short time, he has become a real staple of that St. James community.
He has. He's fired up everybody around him. I mean, you can go to a game at St. James on Friday and see that he has already had an impact developing, tailgating, and more people in the stands. Everybody's having a lot better time. They really are feeding off his energy. I don't know how many times I've said that about this guy. And now to have this happen to him, though, it's very discouraging because, personally, as a member of the media, somebody who has to talk to this guy quite a bit, he is very likable. You can tell that his kids love him. You can tell that the administration loves him. It's a very tough thing for him to go through, but he's a tough son of a gun. If he can get through it, he's going to.
Yeah, I know. At the time we're taping this, apparently he's still having test runs to see what's going on. So, all the best to him, and hopefully he can make a speedy recovery. He's going to, all reports is that he's going to try to be on the sideline as much as possible, which, whatever he wants, right?
Right. Well, they offered him a golf cart last Friday, and he said, "Get that thing out of here. I don't want a stinking golf cart." So, he's going to be there if he can. I think ideally it'd be a situation where he'd like to get treatment early in the week and get it where he feels good enough to coach on Fridays. But at the same time, he doesn't want his kids wondering every single day of practice and games whether or not he's going to be there.
Yeah. All right, let's get to the high school football, at least for week number 6. Our games of the week right now. I think it's Socastee at North Myrtle Beach. It's the one we're talking about here in the Grand Strand. As we're gonna switch it up here. We're gonna talk about games of the week in just a second. First, we're gonna talk about what I was talking about at the beginning, picking region winners. And as the graphic was up right there, 3A Region 7. Go ahead and throw that back up there, Nelson, if you can. As you see right now, Socastee and Myrtle Beach, both of these teams are 5-0 at this point. North Myrtle Beach 4-1, Georgetown 3-2, Wilson 2-3. There's only 5 slots there. St. James is right below them. But those are the 6 teams in the mix. Everyone's picking Myrtle Beach. We'll start with you, Matt. Everyone's picking Myrtle Beach, but can Socastee sneak up on people?
Absolutely they can. Absolutely they can. And I was saying it this week on my show that Tim Renfro has these guys ready week to week, and that's really what it's about. And they've built that momentum moving into this region play now. And getting past North Myrtle Beach will be an interesting one. It's going to be a fun one, but I think they can do that. And going into Myrtle Beach, I think we talked about last week, this Myrtle Beach team can be beat. And if Socastee goes in there prepared, I think they can do it.
Yeah, let's stick with Socastee right here. Is it a bad thing that they had a week off because they had so much momentum going, and then you have to take a week off? You have 2 weeks. Do you overthink North Myrtle Beach? Do you think about Myrtle Beach, which is in 2 weeks? I mean, there's a lot to think about for Socastee.
Right, and I don't think it was a bad thing that they got the week off. It was actually timed perfectly where now they have 3 defensive starters. They're going to be in this game this Friday that haven't been playing for several weeks, and I think 2 of them haven't played since week 1 or 2. So they get to reload a little bit on the defensive side of the ball, which is good because they're going to need it this week. They're especially going to need it next week. I think it was just more of a case of them needing to kind of channel their emotion there for a week off on a Friday. I'm sure a bunch of them went and watched games all around the area and got ready for these next couple weeks.
Yeah, so that's Socastee. Myrtle Beach, on the other hand, we talked a little bit. They knocked off Conway 56-55. However, the positives from that, your offense scores 56 points. The negatives, well, your defense gave up 55 points and maybe have got exposed a little bit. Is there any? What do you take away from this 56-55 game? Is it just a classic rivalry game and anything can happen in a rivalry game, or is there more pressing issue now for Mickey Wilson's team?
Yeah, I think part of it was field position. I mean, Conway was getting pretty decent field position most of the night. They had defense and special teams. Normally that's Myrtle Beach's forte. They kind of did it a little bit on their own too. The other part of it, I mean, 2 of Myrtle Beach's top 3 defensive players did not play against Conway. That's got to be taken into account somewhere along the line.
Is Myrtle Beach still the favorite, though, you think, even though you're high on Socastee right now?
I think Myrtle Beach should be the favorite, but not by much. And I think it could be a coin flip going in, but I think Socastee could take it down.
Narrowing the gap,
Yeah.
are they?
In all sports, it's kind of crazy.
So if we had to pick a
tennis
winner, I'd take the region winner. I mean, I've called Myrtle Beach to lose the last 2 weeks. I'm not going to, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice. They're going to win the region is what I'm going to say. Down the row, who's the region champs this year in 2A or 3A Region 7?
Socastee's taking it down.
Socastee.
Not just a homer either. I think they can do it. Ian doesn't believe me.
Myrtle Beach is going to go 10-0 in the regular season. They're not going to lose a game. They, if Socastee keeps that, a close game, good on them. I think Socastee finished second in Region 7, but it's Myrtle Beach's region. They're not going to lose a game.
I think you're right about that. All right, the other region we're going to take a look at is 2A Region 8. Dillon University, as Ainer coach Jody Jenneret called them in a pregame, preseason press conference. They are 4-1. They lost to Marlboro County over the weekend on Friday. Ainer 4-1. Loris 3-2 after they lost to Georgetown. Waccamaw, like we saw earlier, they were blanked by Timmonsville. Both Mullins and Marion are 1-4. Big matchup this week, Dillon and Ainer. Does Ainer stand a chance?
No. I hate to be so blunt about it. Ainer is so much better than they were last year, but Dillon is one of the top 2 or 3 2A teams in the state. I think last week they lost to Marlboro County with a lot of good athletes, but Dillon had some guys injured. They're just on a different playing field than Ainer. If I'm not mistaken, they've got about 60 to 75% more kids at that school than Ainer does. Ainer, they're going to compete for either second or third place finish in Region 8 2A, but they're not beating Dillon.
Any thoughts on Ainer's start so far?
I mean, Ainer's been playing 1A teams the whole time going through, but Dillon is not on that same playing field like Ian said. I think Ainer meets their match here.
I think the playing field that everyone's talking about is that it's the linemen. It's that Dillon line that's just, heads and shoulders. They got a couple guys that are going to be going to, play at the next level, play on big-time Saturday football. Ainer just doesn't have that. I think Ainer actually might have a scheme that can, score some points. Latta hung tight with Dillon, and Jabo Lee's, still out right now at this point. So that as far as that speed, it's not there. But
I don't think it's going to be 42-0 like it was last year. But I mean, if this is a 2-touchdown game, then Ainer did something very, very right. I mean, they don't necessarily have to win it to get some confidence. Just keep that score from being as ugly as it was last year, and it's something that'll carry over. I mean, like some of the other teams that are, their big matchups are in the first week of region play. Get that tough one out of the way, and then it gets easier from there.
Dillon, and then you have Ainer. Let's go ahead and throw up the graphic again for 2A Region 8. Who's going to get second place in this one? Dillon, obviously, I think we're all going to say Dillon's going to win this region. I'm going to go out, I guess it's not too big of a surprise if I said Loris, because I guess they were picked there, but Loris, they were kind of exposed over against Georgetown. Georgetown's line really dominated that line of scrimmage, and I could see Ainer giving Loris a game. Marion picked up a big win over Hemingway over the weekend. So, I mean, I think it's a 3-horse race between Loris as probably, in my opinion, the favorite to get second place, and then Marion and then Ainer. Would you disagree with that?
I think I think if Loris and Ainer were playing this week, I think Loris would probably be the favorite in that game just because they have experience. They've played a little tougher non-region schedule. They made the game pretty much a quick one last year as well. Loris has defensive guys that can kind of handle that scheme. They match up very well with Ainer, but I do think it comes down to one of those two teams for second place.
I got to go with Loris for second place. I think if Ainer and Loris played this week, Loris would probably come out with that victory. Ainer hasn't been challenged that much, and yeah, I think Loris comes in second in this one.
All right, so even though Ainer is 4-1, they're saying play someone, and then you'll get some of our respect here in the weekly web chat. All right, let's take a look now. We've already started talking a little bit about these Week 6 games. Nelson, here's our game of the week. North Myrtle Beach taking on Socastee, 4-1 against 5-0. We've talked a little bit about it already, but I mean, this is a classic matchup between two surprise teams, in my opinion. North Myrtle Beach, I threw them out there as a 5-5 team this year, and they're doing very nicely to get to that 5-win mark, but they don't want to stop at 5 wins. They want to, be a playoff team. Socastee says, when going out and talking to their team, that Delonzo Williams is the best running back they're going to be facing in region play.
Well, maybe if he plays. I mean, he's got a sprained ankle, and he's going to be a game time decision. Perry Woolbright really wants to win this game. If they win, they are positioned perfectly for a second place finish in the region. At the same time, a sprained ankle, all it takes is one little tweak, and that kid's out for 2 or 3 weeks. They're not going to risk the rest of region play. If he does go, I'd say it's a safe bet that he's at least 90 to 95%.
Yeah, talk about the North Myrtle Beach, just getting some confidence from this win. And Matt, they found a way to win games. They've blown out teams now. Green Sea Floyd, they beat them by 5 scores. Mm-hmm. I mean, can they carry it over?
Yeah, they certainly can. Like we were saying with Delonzo Williams, I mean, he's up there in the rankings in a lot of statistical groups in the first part of the season, and he is very talented. But if he doesn't play, I don't see this game. It could be close, but I really think Socastee would probably walk away with this one. With Delonzo Williams on the field, Socastee's been known to allow a good number of points. It could come down to the last few plays. I still think Socastee is able to take this one, though. I
think Socastee's probably going to take this one. Just they can score. They find, they got a tough running game. And that North Myrtle Beach line, I want to see if their defensive line can play, if they can tackle, if they can control the line of scrimmage. I just don't think they can. I think the Socastee line of scrimmage, Socastee defensive line, offensive line for that matter, is going to control the rest of the way. And I guess I personally see a blowout, and I don't think Socastee's going to overlook any team.
No, I don't think so either. I think they proved that a couple weeks ago against Lakeview, and yeah, they were, pound for pound, every position on the field bigger and better than everyone at Lakeview. But at the same time, you got to go in there. You got to take care of business. They proved they can do that every game so far this year. And playing that triple option offense is not easy. It's scheme oriented, and it'll be the only team like this that North Myrtle Beach plays all year.
Yeah. All right, some of the other games that will be going on Friday night, actually a pretty decent schedule if you looked at it. I know as I pull up my schedule over here, you got Andrews traveling to Lee Central, Dillon taking on Ainer, talked a little bit about that. Carvers Bay, they are kind of the surprise team. And I tell you what, Carvers Bay, they were down 13-6 to St. James at halftime, and their defense made a play that probably one of the best plays. You guys remember, you might not remember this, Matt, but I'm not sure if you remember this, Ian. Loris taking on someone where the defensive player just ripped the ball out and ran it straight in for a touchdown. I forget what the kid's name was. It was I think a year or two. Yeah, last year.
That was against Mullins, and it set up overtime, I believe.
Yeah, and that kind of was what their springboard was to the rest of their season.
Right.
Carvers Bay did the exact same thing where a big lineman, Nikes Tringle, I think it was his name.
Pringle.
Yeah.
He's being recruited by everybody. You'll hear a lot about him.
Kid's a big kid, but what he did, he showed me that he could make a play, then he could just run it straight into the end zone. And all the St. James kids that were a lot smaller, looked more athletic than the kid, just like, whoa, this kid running 50 yards
Shock
pretty
factor.
quick.
Yeah.
It was good. So I think Carver's Bay definitely has a chance in Class A Region 7. If not, they're probably the favorite.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to them, Timmonsville, and Hemingway. There's a possibility all three teams end up 4-1 through region play, and then they end up going to point system. By my calculations, right now, Carver's Bay has got the edge just simply because of their non-region opponents. But again, you got 5 games to prove it, and if they sweep the board, you can just throw the point system out the window. It won't matter.
All right, and some of the other games we got going on: Marion and Loris. You have Waccamaw taking on Mullins. I guess both of us would. That Marion-Loris game is actually probably one of the more underrated games on the Grand Strand. I think if Marion could carry that momentum over from the Hemingway win, watch out. I think they're the under-the-radar team to make some noise in 2A Region 8. But the game I want to talk about as we kind of wrap this thing up here in a second, Myrtle Beach taking on Wilson. Wilson, they're a team that at any given Friday I think can beat anyone on their schedule. They have a line that really rivals anybody in the area. They're 260, 280 across the board. They got a new coach. Their problem right now is discipline. Chad Eady's a new coach, and he's trying to get everyone on the same page. He said, that's the number one thing I want going in is my guys to be disciplined. They got up 15-0 against West Florence. Then they lost like 33-15.
Right. And I think that's the thing that has made Myrtle Beach so special is they capitalize on opposing teams' mistakes. And if they throw one bad pass, it could be a pick six in a hurry. They get bad field position on a kickoff return, then all of a sudden they're punting, they lose field position. That's what Myrtle Beach has done here for a few years, and I expect them to do it again this week.
Myrtle Beach, they spread it out. Does that help them out in this situation, Matt, where maybe they don't have to rely on the size? Myrtle Beach doesn't really technically have a running game.
Yeah, unless they're at the goal line and they mix it up with that.
Trell Harrell.
Harrell, fantasy stud.
Exactly, with that little wild hog offense. But I mean, yeah, it helps that they spread it out. And Tyler Keene, I think, proved that he's pretty much the man for the Seahawks. I mean, putting up, 8 touchdowns last week. So Wilson, like you talked about with discipline, they're always kind of back and forth. You don't really know what you're going to get. And Myrtle Beach just walks in there and takes care of business. I mean, every time. And so I think this is a fun game. It's an interesting game. But I don't think Myrtle Beach has that much trouble.
You make a great point about Tyler Keene. I mean, we talked about all these other storylines. The kid tied a state record for 8 touchdowns, and it was against a 4A team. So, I mean, hats off got to go to him because at one point, I guess in this season, I was kind of questioning, can Myrtle Beach put up the offensive numbers? We talked about they only had 100 yards against what was it?
Carolina Forest.
Carolina Forest. It was like, what's going on with the Myrtle Beach offense? Then he comes out and answers the bell.
Right. Yeah. I think it took some time. I mean, they were replacing 3 offensive linemen. They have no running game to rely on unless they're at the 2-yard line and go into the Wildcat. There's a lot of pressure on that. He was scrambling around. He was running, off to his right and then having to throw across his body back to the left. I mean, things like this were kind of holding it back. But if they get a defensive scheme where a little bit is being given to them, those receivers can make a lot of people miss because they're bigger and they're faster than a lot of the guys trying to tackle them.
All right, as we wrap things up, Matt, what's the thing you're looking forward to the most, or the player or team that you're looking to spotlight heading into week number 6?
I'm very interested to see how Tyler Keene's Myrtle Beach offense come out against Wilson because, as we talked about earlier, they did put up the points, but they also gave up points as well. So I'm interested to see how Tyler Keene comes off of that huge performance. Is there going to be a little bit of a slump? Is he going to be able to come out and put up, obviously not the same numbers, but similar numbers to take down Wilson? That'll be interesting.
As I say, I think he's going to slump no matter what. I don't think
Yeah,
he's
I don't
throwing
think there's anywhere else to
I don't
go.
think he's throwing for 520 and 8 touchdowns. If he does, I don't know. Maybe we'll have to make the drive over to Florence to just talk to him again.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think this week I'm really interested to see what Daquan Brown over at Socastee does. I mean, everybody talks about Hunter Renfro and all this stuff, but Hunter takes so much pressure off of Daquan, and Daquan's now got over 500 yards rushing, and he basically only played, a quarter and a half a couple weeks ago. He could be up over 600 if they want him to. I'm really interested to see what he'll be able to do against North Myrtle Beach.
And they have another guy, Delano Walters.
Right.
He's pretty good as well. I'm interested in Georgetown, St. James. A lot of good storylines over there with St. James and their coach, and how will the team rally around Coach Mark Fisher. Then you also have Georgetown on the other hand. Caleb Hughes might have played one of his better games. 18 of 28, 146, got in the end zone, got a big win over Loris. And so I'd like to see Georgetown and whoever they're playing, St. James. And, you know, that's a good key matchup for Region 7 in Class 3A. All right. That's all the time we got here today. We talked a long time. It seemed like 17
It's over
minutes.
already?
I know. It went by quick. He's Ian Guerin of The Sun News, Matt Parris of ESPN Radio. Thanks for watching. I'm Jeff Zell. See you back here next week.